Hi, everybody. Welcome to Bill Whittle Now. I'm Bill Whittle. Scott Ott has been called away on some last-minute family emergency, and we'll have him back on Thursday. So in order to try and keep with the general theme of the show, I thought I would speak about whatever the top headline on Drudge is at the moment. I haven't checked Drudge over the weekend, so let's see what's going on out there in the world. Border simmers, Trump threatens to close permanently, thousands more march towards USA. Well, to say that this is the story that won't go away is to understate the case. It's a story that won't go away because I've recently, through a tremendous book called The Revenge of Geography, I've recently come to realize that the border with Mexico is the number one strategic interest in the United States' future. It far surpasses anything that we have to deal with overseas in the Middle East and even large relationships with China and Russia and so on. The border with Mexico is becoming the battleground for the definition of not only America, but of a country. So I'd like to maybe talk about that aspect of it, the whole idea of a country and the morality of it. We've seen in Europe a couple years ago where various nations, most notably Germany, accepted a million immigrants from generally from the Middle East and from Northern Africa. And the tremendous social turmoil that was caused. And not only the social turmoil in terms of the roughness of the interaction between two, not only different cultures, you could probably say opposing cultures, but also the turmoil caused by average Germans and average Swedes and average Brits and average Frenchmen and so on and so on and so on. The turmoil caused by having this essentially rammed down their throats by the governing elites. Now, we were well on that way with Barack Obama, another one of these left-wing internationalists who have it in their interest to essentially reduce the idea of countries to just, postage destinations. So the entire idea of a country is a group of people there has to be an inside and an outside for there to be a country. Now I'm using my primitive, conservative brain, fear-based conservative reasoning. But basically that's what it comes down to. A country is a group of people which has citizens in it, and outside of it are other groups of people with their citizens, and those are called other countries. If we follow the advice of the progressives, and we simply say that there should be no such thing as a border, no such thing as a wall, no such thing as illegal immigrants, none of that, then the entire idea of the United States as a country goes away. In fact, the entire idea of countries goes away, and that is, I think, in the interest of the elites that are running the world. And when I say the elites, I'm not talking about Illuminati or anything like that. I'm talking about a group of people who are educated, if not in the same place, then certainly to the same ideals and the same goals. They have the same core beliefs. They have the same virtue signaling that they do. And it's an impermeable bubble, by the way. I mean, you really have to watch some people who would otherwise be really quite intelligent absolutely resist the temptation or the desire. I'm assuming it's temptation or certainly not desire to know more, but they will refuse to look at what's actually happening on the ground, in the air, and so on and so forth. So why would it be in their interest to eliminate the entire idea of a country? I have to tell you, I don't really know. I suspect that it comes from the same will to power that drives people to become politicians in the first place. I had an interesting question about this a couple of nights ago, I think on the Stratosphere Lounge, where somebody said, are there any stand-up conservatives who are really real guys and don't become victims of the system? And I said, well, not many. One of the reasons that the left is as successful as it is that politics is their entire life. It's their religion, it's their hobby, it's their family, it's day school, night school, and it's everything to them. And so since the left cannot really sell the American people on this collectivist idea that has killed 150 million people and continues to fail in front of our eyes in places like Venezuela and so on. They can't openly come out and support that, but that's what they want. And the reason they want that is, as simply as you can put it, I think, you can sum up with Hillary Clinton's attitude. Hillary Clinton famously wrote a book called It Takes a Village, about how you need a community to raise a child. But there's something deeper in that book title. It takes a village, which means that there has to be a village chief. And I bet she knows just the person that she's got in mind. To reduce people to the collective, the masses, the proletariat, the great unwashed, elevates you above humanity. Ultimately, it's a form of pride. It's a sinful form of pride. It's elevating yourself to a kind of a demigod. And certainly the press was complicit in this with Obama, with all of the pictures of the halos around his head and all the rest of this stuff. But it is essential part of somebody's nature, if they're constructed in such a way, to tell other people what to do. Now, virtually everybody watching the show is a psychologically healthy individual, present company accepted, obviously. But most of the people who are conservatives don't have any desire to tell other people what to do. It's just we would just like to be left alone. As a matter of fact, if they would just leave us alone, there really wouldn't be any reason to have a conservative party or conservative movement. It's the whole purpose of it, as I see it, is to stand together to make these other people leave us alone. That's all. Just leave us alone. But that's not good enough. If the Democrats find out that one person is happy, then nobody is happy. And they're going to keep going until they have absolute political control in every part of their lives, because politics allows the B and C students and the beta dogs and the omega dogs, politics allows them to use the coercive power of the law to get what they want. And so ultimately, this is, I think, what drives this whole equation and the whole lust for power that seems to be at the center of this border issue on the left. We want to protect the United States of America because it's a group of citizens who not only were born into this, but have also performed any number of duties in order to maintain this status as a place that everybody wants to come to. And first in mind, obviously, are people in the military who whether they've been shot at, whether they've been injured, whether they've been killed is not relevant. It's important, but it's not relevant to the argument. When you sign on in the armed services of the United States of America, you sign on the dotted line, you are willingly giving up your rights for the next 4 years or however long you'd like. Not only are you giving up your rights, you're giving up your common sense, you're giving up your survival instinct. Anybody who signs that document has the possibility of being ordered into a situation that is so dangerous that the idea of them walking into it under their own free will is simply unthinkable. We have the first responders, we have the firefighters, we have the policemen, all of these people who rightfully get a great deal of credit for keeping this civilization functioning as a law-abiding country, at least as long as we can. But the real thing that nobody ever talks about in terms of why people want to come to America and why American citizens like myself are so offended at this idea of simply opening the door is pretty simple, really. What we do in America on a daily basis to make it the kind of country that people are ready to come to is we do really pretty much two things. We go to work and we tolerate other people. We don't tolerate people in the glorified sense of the progressives. We don't worship the diversity. We simply say, hey, if you're in New York City and you're from Pakistan and you're from India and you open restaurants next to each other, you don't get to kill each other over the menu selections. You have to accept the fact that those old blood feuds and all the rest remain in the past, that the entire idea of America is that when you come here, you become a new person. You are remade as an American first, and this is the essence of why I love this country. But the left wants to do away with all of that. And the only reason, as I said, that I can think of is they want the power to tell more people what to do. They want that power. Now, the final point I'll make about this is the power to tell people what to do, and you can look at this in any collectivist society. Look at the communists, look at the Nazis, look at the Chinese Maoists, all of them. Look at Venezuela. What you find is that on the left, the idea is to appeal to people's fairness and decency. And so it's not fair that this guy has so much and he has so little. Most people respond to that. So they appeal to people's fairness and decency, and they impose a system where a very few people have total control over the rest of the population. But here's the operational point. The ability to tell people what to do is also the ability to not have to tell yourself what to do. In other words, it's the ability to play by your own rules. And for anybody who still buys this socialism joke, you'll have to do a little explaining to me. Fidel Castro died. He had $800 million in his personal bank account. The people in Cuba are starving. $800 million in his personal bank account. Venezuela, which went from being one of the richest countries in the Western Hemisphere to eating their own pets and zoo animals and now basically nothing to eat. I find it interesting that Hugo Chavez's daughter has $4.3 billion US in her personal bank account. She could feed the entire country and keep on feeding it, but she doesn't. And the reason she doesn't is because it's not about the people. It's not about injustice. It's not about people climbing over a wall. It's not about people sleeping on the streets. It's about a certain number of people who see the things in the world that they like in terms of nice cars and nice houses and nice buildings and so on. They know they can't get it through hard work or intelligence or persistence. So they simply find a way to get themselves into politics, and then they use the leverage of the other alpha dogs in blue coming to take away things from the alpha dogs that are out there trying to make a living and try to make this country worth living in. So the reason America's worth getting to is because we get up at 6:30 in the morning and we're in traffic at 8 and we sit there for an hour. We get to work at 9 and then we go home at 5, do the same thing in reverse. We do it every day. We do it every day for 40, 50, 60 years. And it's this fundamental willingness to get up, go to work, and not kill somebody else that makes this country work. And all of this is in the Constitution. It's all wide open right there for anybody to see. So my feeling as a citizen inside this group of people that's been doing very well, to which I contribute, by the way, and to which you contribute as well, we earned our place here. What my response to this will be, we cannot allow the world to live in this country because it just simply cannot happen. And if somebody's on the border of Mexico and they're allowed in, then there's no moral difference between that person and a person who wants to come here from Shanghai or from Madagascar or from Finland or whatever the case illegally. There's no difference between the person here that wants to come in illegally and a person anywhere in the world who wants to come here, which is just about everybody. So this is why we need a border. We need a border and we need a wall ultimately, because there has to be a dividing line between the people that do the hard work of civilization versus the people that don't. I'm not saying that people in Mexico don't work hard. I live in LA, and Mexicans that I've run into here are the hardest working people I've seen. But as countries, they are not willing to abandon the corruption and follow the rule of law. They're not willing to abandon the old blood feuds. They're not willing to abandon the basic fundamental laziness and of basically just sitting around and looking at your village. And you could take an example from the Caucasus, let's say. There you've got this village somewhere out there, and that's as white as you get, by the way, the Caucasus, because you know the Caucasians and so on. And P.G. O'Rourke wrote about this, how he would go to a village where the earth was so rich, he said you could just simply boil it for soup, and there'd be a sewer running down the middle of the village, and that sewer had been there forever. And as P.J. said, it just takes any normal, healthy American male and 1 hour at Home Depot and $200 and solve this sewage problem for the rest of time. But they don't do it. And until they learn how to do it, they're going to want to come here. And we should be teaching them how to do it, but we should be teaching them how to do it from a position of strength that has been generated by our hard work and our fundamental fairness and our fundamental sense of justice, which is being used against us by the people that want to destroy all of this so they can rule over the ruins of the society. There's something wrong with those people. There really is. That'll do it for this edition of Bill Whittle Now. We miss Scott Ott very much. We'll see him back on Thursday. If you want to be a part of this, you can go to billwhittle.com and become a member. We'd be glad to have you. Thanks very much. We'll see you tomorrow morning.